Hello there, it's your friend Phil, project management trainer, leadership and agile coach. We have a lot to talk about today about agile, so pull up and let's discuss. Agile, first and foremost, is a philosophy and a mindset put into motion through deliberate, intentional, conscious, value-driven actions. Let me say that again. Agile is a philosophy and a mindset put into motion through deliberate, intentional, conscious, value-driven actions to achieve customer desired outcomes, value, and satisfaction. So when we talk about scaling agile, it's a sensitive topic to me because I find a lot of people being eager, impatient, and perhaps a little bit greedy for speed. And it's important that when we look at Agile, we don't see it as a framework. Agile is not a framework. It's a philosophy driven by mindset put into motion through deliberate, conscious, value-driven actions to achieve customer desired outcomes, value and satisfaction, and if I may add, not at the expense of the team health, not at the expense of the team morale. So it's very important when you think about scaling agile, we see it as being a bit of an oxymoron because you cannot scale a mindset, a philosophy. If you look at agile as a framework isolated, then perhaps you could think of scaling that. But agile is not frameworks. So when we talk about scaling agile in industry, it often refers to the application of agile principles and practices beyond individual teams to the entire organization. It's a response to the need for large enterprises to extend the benefits of agile. Let's call it agile philosophies, right? Because I hate using the word frameworks or methodologies. So let's talk about it being extend the benefits of agile practices to complex multi-team projects. Now, while agile is inherently a philosophy and a mindset focused on delivering customer value through iterative and collaborative approaches, scaling agile involves adapting these principles to suit the challenges of larger and more intricate organizational structures. However, there can be unrealistic expectations associated with scaling agile, and it's essential to recognize the following points because today we're going to break apart the concept of scaling and we're going in on the scaled agile framework once and for all because I keep getting questions from friends and colleagues, clients about SAFe. So I want to address this once and for all. Let me make it clear one more time. Agile is a philosophy driven by mindset. It's not a framework. At the end of the day, we want to execute on that philosophy. So it's fundamentally about embracing a set of values and principles outlined in the Agile Manifesto and beyond. Scaling Agile is not just about implementing a specific framework like SAFe. Instead, I would rather organizations spend more time in the cultural shift, the change leadership, and a commitment to the Agile philosophy at all levels of the organization. And if that is not in place, nothing is going to help like bringing in some off-the-shelf framework. Number two, complexity of organizational change. When you talk about introducing Agile at a larger scale, it involves a significant organizational change, and change is inherently complex. Unrealistic expectations could arise when organizations underestimate the time, the effort, and the challenges associated with shifting to a more agile way of working. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Organizations are diverse. And what works for one organization may not work for another. Unrealistic expectations can arise when there's a belief that the single scaling framework, such as SAFe, is a universal solution. In reality, organizations may need to tailor and adapt agile practices to suit their unique context. We actually have a course on scaling, and we always recommend an agnostic perspective first. Number 4, balancing flexibility and structure. Agile values flexibility and adaptability, but scaling Agile often introduces additional structures and processes to manage larger initiatives. Striking the right balance between maintaining agility and introducing necessary structures can be challenging and lead to unmet expectations. What about cultural transformation? Number 5, it takes time. Embracing the Agile philosophies and mindsets and the culture of collaboration being fostered and transparency and continuous improvement is a journey that takes time. Unrealistic expectations may arise when organizations anticipate immediate results. Oh, we'll just implement this framework and boom, we're going to be agile to the max. No, that is unrealistic. We must recognize the need for a gradual transformation. It's all about leadership. Number 6, resistance to change. Organizations may face resistance from individuals and teams accustomed to traditional ways of working. Some teams have barely gotten over the hump of understanding the Agile Manifesto values and principles. And then you want to introduce a whole different lingo? That is not the way to do it. Number 7, the risk of turning Agile into a process. Scaling Agile involves implementing frameworks and roles and ceremonies. However, unrealistic expectations can arise when these elements are seen as a checklist rather than as tools to support the Agile mindset. And there's a risk of treating Agile as a process rather than a set of values and principles to embody the philosophies and the mindset to intentionally execute with value and outcome at the back of your mind. Lack of alignment with business goals. Unrealistic expectations may emerge if there's a disconnect between the Agile initiatives and the broader business goals. For successful scaling, there must be alignment between the Agile practices and the organization's strategic objectives. How about technical excellence? Scaling Agile is not just about managing people and processes. It also requires a focus on technical excellence. Unrealistic expectations may arise if organizations neglect the importance of solid technical practices and only concentrate on organizational structures. Last but not least, continuous learning and adaptation. Agile is about continuous learning and adaptation, and organizations may have unrealistic expectations if they anticipate a static one-time implementation of Agile practices without ongoing reflection and improvement. So here's my summary for this first part. In summary, while scaling Agile is a valuable approach for large organizations, and when I say scaling, I'm talking about introducing Agile to a wider audience, helping multiple teams working together to better collaborate. While that is valuable, it is crucial to approach it with realistic expectations. A successful transformation requires a deep understanding of the Agile mindset, a commitment to cultural change, and a willingness to adapt practices to the unique context of the organization. Now that we've got the understanding of scaling and what it means, the pros and the cons out of the way, let's dive in deeper to this thing called the Scaled Agile Framework. The Scaled Agile Framework, SAFe, is well known in industry because of some of the aspects people expect from it. People expect improved time to market and enhanced productivity and efficiency. There are promises of better quality and customer satisfaction, and many more. But despite that promise, I want you to understand some of the setbacks of this Agile framework. Now, SAFe is meant to extend Agile principles and practices beyond individual teams to entire organizations. And there are 3 levels of SAFe. There's the team level, there's the program level, and there's the portfolio level. However, there's additional complexity associated with SAFe. It introduces additional roles, So it's not just a product owner and a scrum master. There are also release train engineers, product managers, and other roles. There are other ceremonies. There are release trains, there are program increments, there's agile release trains, and a lot more. This is where it gets hairy and complex. While SAFe has gained popularity for its attempt to address challenges in scaling agile principles, it is not without its setbacks. And let me walk you through very quickly some of my pet peeves about this so-called agile framework. And why I say so-called is I come from a very heavily predictive world. So I expect things in agile to be simple. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, not given more work. That needs to be the mindset. That's what the Agile Manifesto says. So, my first pet peeve is complexity. SAFe introduces a considerable amount of complexity to the organization with its numerous roles, needless ceremonies, artifacts, and unwieldy process. It can be overwhelming for teams and individuals, especially those new to agile practices. Number two is rigidity. Critics argue that SAFe can be too prescriptive and rigid, which may stifle innovation and adaptability. And when I say critics, I'm talking about many of the writers of the Agile Manifesto. So keep that in mind. The folks who put the Agile Manifesto, values and principles together, are not on board with this. Some teams may find it challenging to tailor SAFe to their specific needs, and they may feel constrained by the framework. Case in point, one of my mentees is consistently running into bottlenecks and problems and restraints and difficulties as a result of its unwieldiness. There's a product manager, there's a release train engineer, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. Implementing SAFe often requires a significant cultural shift within an organization. And I'm not talking about a cultural shift from predictive to agile. I'm talking about a cultural shift, period, because even if you were truly in the world of agile, changing to SAFe reduces your ability to be as agile, in my mind, due to its unwieldiness. There's an overemphasis of process. SAFe places a strong emphasis on processes and structures. And sometimes that is at the expense of agile values and principles. And this focus on framework itself might lead to teams following processes mechanically rather than understanding the underlying mindset. For example, I'm working with a product owner who is confused and is in this world of the scaled agile framework. This individual does not even understand the best way to manage the work of a product owner from an agile perspective, because it's so process driven that you lose sight on the key things that help you as a product owner. Let's talk about bureaucracy. The framework introduces additional layers of hierarchy and governance to manage large-scale projects. This can result in increased bureaucracy, slowing down decision-making. It's very painful and annoying, I tell you the truth. And I know I'm sounding like I'm getting into my emotions here, but that is because I have a lot of skin in the game in companies I've trained, and I don't want them to go down this crazy road. Let's talk about dependency management. Now, while SAFe produces these mechanisms for managing dependencies, those in the know argue that it doesn't do enough to address the challenges associated with inter-team dependencies, potentially leading to delays and bottlenecks. You see, here's the key. Individuals and interactions should be valued over processes and tools. SAFe is very process heavy. Number 7 on my list is tooling requirements. Successful implementation of this framework supposedly requires specific tooling and software support. And that's an additional cost. Let's just call it a cash cow in disguise. And it's not your cash cow. Training and skill gaps is number 8. Adopting the Scale Agile framework requires training for everyone, from team members to executives. And this is a totally different layer of training than the Certified Scrum Master courses you've gone for, the Certified Scrum Product Owner courses, the Professional Scrum Master, whatever you've been for, ACP, whatever the certification you've been for. There's another layer. And I tell you, I've mentored and trained and coached many Agilists, and they have to go through another layer because someone in management has a bright idea to bring this into the firm. And the need for specialized safe training and certifications can create skill gaps. And it may be very time consuming and very expensive. And there are yearly fees for these certifications. Inconsistent results. I am going to walk you through in my next video the inconsistencies from the website safedelusion.com. If you get a minute, go to safedelusion.com and read up the horror stories. Safe is not a one-size-fits-all fix for every company. I do not begrudge organizations that say they've realized value from it, but I highly discourage it for any firm, especially those firms that I and my team have trained. Finally, let's talk about limited emphasis. SAFE focuses more on organizational and process aspects of Agile, and it may not provide sufficient guidance on the technical practices. And it can be a drawback for organizations looking for a more holistic Agile transformation. And that's why I tell people, you got to look inside your firm for what you need. SAFE is designed supposedly for large-scale enterprises with multiple teams, startups and smaller businesses, or smaller business units. Now, don't go looking at your business unit as the entire organization. SAFE may be much too cumbersome for your business unit. What about the top-down approach? SAFE promotes collaboration, they say, but a lot of critics know that it has a top-down structure. I'm going to put a few links in this to interviews I've had with individuals. One individual is Rob, and you can listen to Rob's story after 5 years of being in the game of SAFE, having all the certifications. He decided he had to quit due to his conscience, due to morality and ethics. And he relinquished those certifications, and he just stopped. There's jargon overload, there's limited agility, and it's not the perfect fit. One look at the big map tells you this is definitely not an agile mindset. So for those of you who have been dabbling into the concept of SAFE, I want you to go to safedelusion.com, and I want you to read all the stories from people who have attempted to implement it. Read from organizations. You browse that website and hit me back up with thoughts. There's stories from the US Air Force, ThoughtWorks, Blue Dolphin, Fitbit, Volvo, ANZ Bank, and the list goes on. These are case studies of why you should not proceed down this road. Instead, what I would recommend is getting a very good team together to understand what exactly is needed. Think about descaling first before you think about scaling. And when you get to that point, let's look at some low cost or even free models, custom models that you can actually build to deal with working on multiple teams together. I hope this has given you some insights. Look for links below. All the very best in your Agile journey, but definitely don't be safe. I would rather you be unsafe in this case.